The last video that was a rant type video that I made, I talked about how most people in this world are, corrupted and pretty much just a bunch of zombies going with the flow, pretty much. This time I'm going to talk about how a lot of times when people do have legit spiritual awakenings, they end up getting put in a mental hospital, pretty much. And the reason that is because the majority of the inhabitants of this world are a bunch of zombies. They are spiritually corrupt. Because, like I said, this world was invaded by an evil spirit. Originally, no one even died. Death is an invasive force upon this world. So, in order to exist in this world, you have to be spiritually corrupted, like I said in my previous video. And when people start getting spiritually awakened, the zombies that run this world, they don't like that. They will call them abnormal. They will want to force them on medication. They will want to get rid of them. Why? Because it will destroy the plan of the evil spirit that they are being controlled by. You see, the evil spirit that, invaded this world and pretty much controls a good chunk of it, he doesn't want people to wake up. So he sends his minions, pretty much, which are other human beings that just go with the flow, are a bunch of sheep. And aren't really even a bunch of sheep, they're zombies at the end of the day, pretty much. Just going with the flow of things. And what's the flow? What's the brainwashed flow that they want you to follow? All the abnormal things that they've been pushing in the media. Kids becoming transgender, the LGBT ideology, all that. And that's the most recent. They've always been propagating. But the problem is humans are harder to propagate or propagandize to, I should say, when they're closer to nature. It's in the 1850s when we started to industrialize, when this phenomena started getting worse. Why? Because when you industrialize, when you take humans out of a more natural environment that's closer to nature and put them in an industrial environment, like right now, like the modernized cities and the suburban cages, basically suburban houses. So you take a person, a human being, out of nature. When you take a human being out of nature, they are not as close to God as they were in nature, or they are not as close to the gods, basically. Which is why societies like the Vikings, the Lithuanians, they had a more natural worldview on how everything's supposed to be because they are more in nature. When you take a person out of nature, you get rid of that natural worldview that the gods basically put in us, basically. And your thinking starts becoming more unnatural. You start to think more of the way transgender people do, or you start to think in a way where you think you're that if someone doesn't want to work a low paying job at Burger King, you might start to think that they're selfish, but no, they're not selfish. They're actually very smart. Especially you realize that they're very smart when you read that medieval peasants made more and worked less than most people working minimum wage jobs like pushing carts or flipping burgers nowadays. And people were treated fairer sometimes too. Why? Because most people were closer to nature, making them closer to the gods, making them more humble, and less narcissistic, which is also the reason, a big reason I just want to say why narcissism is going up is because we are moving away from a natural mindset. People used to think of the community. And I just want to say really quickly that our closest relatives, orangutans and chimpanzees, homosexuality is actually rare to non existent among them. And it was rare and non existent among humans too. The only great ape species where homosexuality is extremely prevalent are bonobos. But the thing is, bonobos are more related to chimps than they are to humans. And in chimpanzees, it's rare to non existent. So the thing is, if you really look at it, homosexuality was actually rare to non existent among human communities also. But when you take a person out of his natural environment and put them in an industrial city complex, all of a sudden their minds start getting twisted. They start exhibiting behaviors of, I guess, what they call mental illness. Like they said, chimpanzees, when you put them in zoos, they start exhibiting behaviors like I had back in high school, and the behaviors I had when I was hospitalized. They start rocking back and forth. They start having mood swings. And that's because that's what happens when you take an animal out of their natural habitat, pretty much. Had to get something to drink. So, like I was saying, when you take a human being out of his natural environment, just like the chimpanzees, they don't know really what to do because an animal was programmed, or animals are programmed to exist in a particular environment. And their brains are programmed to function in that environment like a wheel, basically spins around in motion. When you take an animal out of his environment, that wheel gets blocked by something. And the animal doesn't know what to do. And humans are pretty much the only animal that trapped themselves as a whole. Like, as a whole, trapped themselves, pretty much. Which is kind of crazy to think about. If you really think about it. As human beings, we trapped ourselves as a whole. The only communities that aren't trapped are indigenous human beings, pretty much, and indigenous tribes, basically. So the question now is, can humans untrap themselves? Well, excuse me. The funny thing is that we've trapped ourselves before, and we untrapped ourselves before. The way we did it is civilization usually doesn't sustain itself. A lot of times, for example, in the Bronze Age, the Indus Valley civilization, or the Bronze Age collapse, I should say, happened because they ran out of zinc. So they couldn't really make bronze anymore, which caused the first Dark Age. But if you look at Dark Ages, as they call them, people are more human in them. And the reason that is because they're closer to nature. When things become civilized, all of a sudden they're not. So their minds are closer to nature because of that. And this civilization that we're living in, it's already collapsing if you look at it. If you look at the riots that were here in Chicago, where I live, and all that, humans, when put in such a large number together, they end up going mental. And the reason that is because basically humans are meant to live in small communities with people that they trust. When you put a human being in such a large number of humans, they start going mental, they don't know who to trust, they start ripping each other off because it's not human nature to be in such a large number of other humans. Because at the end of the day, humans are tribal by nature. We're supposed to be living in small tribal hubs, not big metropolitan cities where you don't know who to trust. Okay, I can never figure out which light to leave on or turn off in this room. Anyway, so like I said, humans aren't meant to live in these big metropolitan areas because they will go mental at the end of the day, pretty much. Because it's not, like I said, humans are meant to live in small tribes. And as you can see, you can already see this collapse, this civilization type collapse that happened before. Because at the end of the day, this trap we trapped ourselves in isn't part of human nature. So when that does happen, the way we untrap ourselves is to simply go back to living in small tribal type communities. One group of people that continued to live in a small community and are amazingly all there. They are literally all there with no mental defect, are the Amish. Um, so when that does happen, another big civilization collapse, the best thing is to not to advance technologically and just be human. Like people are saying, like transhumanism, cyborgs, like add mechanical parts to humans. Like why? Just be human. Just be a human being. Like, never figure out which light to leave off or on. But basically, just be human. That's what we should do when this modern day civilization of ours that we built collapses. Just be human. There's no need to expand technologically. There's no reason to do anything else. Humans should just live in the environment that they were meant to, close to nature and in small communities, pretty much, of people that they can trust. Not in large metropolitan areas of people that they don't know and don't know if they can trust. And like I said, also, metropolitan areas do sort of take people away from being connected to the divine and pretty much all that. It's how you turn a human being into a machine by putting him in civilization in a big metropolitan area, pretty much. But that's pretty much all I had to say about this one. I might as well call this This World is Corrupted Part 2. Might make a Part 3 and Part 4. I don't know if there's going to be a Part 3 of this type of rant of mine. I might, call it something else. That's pretty much what I had to, say. Pretty much about the condition we are in as a species. One of the reasons so many people are corrupted is because we have separated ourselves from nature, which connects us to the divine. Why do you think people who live in the countryside are more religious? Because they are more connected to the divine and human nature while living closer to nature, pretty much. And why do you think so many people who live in the cities, like New York, Chicago, why they support gay marriage, transgenderism, is because they have separated themselves. They have separated themselves from nature, pretty much. And when you separate yourself from nature, you separate yourself from your own human nature. Um, and that is the conclusion of this rant, which is a part two to one that I made before with a similar name that I will give this video. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Stay strong out there. That's all you can do.